All right, we've done a few videos now on draft prospects for the Chicago Bulls to select at number 12, and while I think there are actually a number of prospects that I like and believe would fit nicely with the Bulls, probably more so than past draft classes, but there are a couple players that I am super hesitant on, players I am not high on at all based on what we've seen thus far from their college careers and workouts at the draft combine. Players I believe have major bust potential, or at least have a higher likelihood to fail than succeed in the NBA. And given the importance of the Bulls needing to hit on these picks, something I cannot emphasize enough, given the current state of the team and their direction, they must hit on this pick, even if it doesn't necessarily turn into a star player, but at a minimum, a strong contributor that they can work with and build with for the future. As such, there are a few players I am really hoping to not hear their name called when the Bulls make their selection. And if you're wondering which players I'm referring to, well, I'll be covering it in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now guys, we have the finals just around the corner. It's the most exciting time of year in basketball, but that also means time is running out for you to put your final takes to test on Prize Picks, the best place to cash in on all of your favorite sports. We're going to see a new champion for the first time in more than 50 years, which is absolutely insane. So don't miss your last chance to cash in on history with Prize Picks. Pick more or less on players' stats like points, rebounds, assists, and more for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join the millions of users and sign up today. What I love about Prize Picks is that it's super user-friendly and simple to set up your lineups and make the games that much more fun to follow along and see how your lineups are performing in real time. To be honest, I feel like choosing who to go with for my lineups in this final series is going to be really hard, but we'll see how it plays out. And guys, they're offering viewers of this channel $50 instantly when you sign up and play $5. You don't need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. So download the app today and use the code BULLCENTRAL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code BULLCENTRAL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Now in this video, I'm going to be making some assumptions on not only where some of these guys could potentially fall, but also with the Bulls potentially trading up or down in the draft and not in fact selecting 12th. And I do want to be clear, which maybe doesn't even need to be stated, but I could be wildly wrong in my belief in how some of these players will turn out in the league. Like I've said countless times, the NBA draft is a crapshoot, and you never really know what you're going to get until a guy steps out onto the NBA court and starts playing. But I'm going to start with a guy who I hinted at in my last video of a player I am super wary of in how he'll turn out in the NBA as a player. And I know some Bulls fans are super high on him, so we'll likely get a lot of hate for this one, but that's the big man freshman out of Maryland and Derek Queen. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of things to like about Queen. A big body, big man who can run the floor, has good instincts when it comes to his overall playmaking ability, but also a great interior post presence with a knack for finishing at the rim. And yeah, the Bulls need more bigs. They need more front court players more so than guards. And above all, they need to find a center for the future with Vucevic's time in Chicago coming to an end. But what concerns me about Queen is one, his size, and that he's actually an undersized 5 at 6'9", if that's the position he plans to play in the NBA. While he's strong and physical, I can still see him getting outworked on the glass when he's going up against bigs that are much taller than him. While he's great on the offensive end, especially on the offensive glass for second chance points, he's not as strong on the interior on defense. He's not much of a rim protector, not the best at defending the pick and roll, which is what the Bulls have struggled with for so many years with Vucevic being their starting center. He's not that athletic. I mean, he's certainly more of an athlete than Vucevic, and he's quicker than Vuce in the open court, but he doesn't scream high-level athlete where you would say, this dude, while raw, still has a ton of upside. Which, speaking of upside, and I don't think this is that much of an issue because he's still insanely young, but he's an older one-and-done player, already being 20, and be turning 21 this upcoming season. But generally speaking, when you're talking about guys who have ridiculous upside, you're looking at those players who are 18 and 19 years old. But again, to me, that's a small downside. The bigger concerns are the fact that he's not a shooter, he doesn't take threes, so he's not going to be a big that can space the floor, he's not a lob threat, and he's undersized for a big. So I do question his fit coming into the league. I do question whether he actually has the tools to thrive in the NBA. And I question whether this is really a play for the Bulls that is worth gambling the 12th pick on. Now, it's possible Queen won't be available by the time the Bulls are on the clock, as there have been a handful of mock boards that have him going in the top 10, but if he's available 12, I just hope to hear another name called by the Bulls. Now this next guy, and I have to add a caveat here because the assumption on this one is that the Bulls would be trading up, which I desperately hope they do not do to get this guy, and that's the Bulls taking Ace Bailey. Now if Ace Bailey somehow falls drastically and he's still available at number 12, I mean, I feel like you have to take him at that point as he would be the best player available, and you could figure it out after the fact. But for the love of God, do not trade up to get Ace Bailey. And look, I recognize that I'm very low on Bailey, probably to a fault. And when you look at this kid, falling on most boards where he went from consensus number 2 pick 12 months ago, only behind Cooper Flagg, to then number 3 behind Dylan Harper, to now where you're seeing him slide out of the top 5. It's kind of case in point why I would be livid if the Bulls trade up to get this guy. Like if the Bulls had to give up assets to get Bailey, who in my view is a huge risk, would be yet another blemish on AK's tenure with the Bulls. Like I look at a guy like Ace Bailey and I see Michael Beasley written all over him. Big time athlete, dude can score, but a high volume scorer that is inefficient with poor decision making on offense. Turns the ball over at a high rate. He doesn't do well in pressure when he's being double teamed. For me too, from a maturity perspective as well, I just don't see it there with Ace Bailey. Now I will say, if Bailey can focus more of his efforts on the defensive end because he's actually a really strong defender both on and off the ball, and if he can defer more on offense and would be willing to take on a lesser role on the offensive end, then I can get behind Bailey. But something tells me he really wants to be the guy. He wants to be the primary option, and I just don't see that going over very well. Another guy I'm hoping the Bulls avoid, who I'm sure I'll get some hate for as well because I know we have a lot of Illini fans in here, and that's Kasparas Jakučinis. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, but for Kasparas, some of it has to do with the fact that the Bulls should not draft another guard unless they see some massive upside potential, and I don't see massive upside with this kid. He's a smart player, crafty ball handler, great passer, excellent feel for the game and able to generate offense for others, but very limited in his overall scoring, and he's not that quick and athletic to get to the hoop. His shooting has been okay but unpredictable given his shot fell off after he sustained a forearm injury last year. He's not a good defender because he doesn't have that level of lateral footwork and quickness to stay in front of his man. I mean, to me, this is more based on the current state of the Bulls because the last thing they need is another guard who can't play defense and doesn't shoot well. And then finally, I'm not high on Danny Wolf. Like a lot of these prospects, I mean, there are things to like about them, especially with Wolf and his size, good footwork in the paint, pretty good playmaker for his size at 7 feet, but he's not the best in the pick and roll. Turns the ball over a lot because his handles aren't very tight in the paint. He can shoot it from outside. It's not like he's one of these bigs that just doesn't take threes, period, but he doesn't shoot it well consistently, and he's not a great defender. Like, I don't need another repeat of Vucevic, or really a lesser Vucevic for that matter. Not only that, but I think taking Wolf at 12 is a stretch for him. I know he's been mocked that high and he's been in and around that range on most boards, but this is a guy that really should be going more in the 15 to 18 range. And if I'm the Bulls, I mean, if you're going to take somewhat of a gamble on a guy at 12 that is maybe a bit of a reach, I'd rather go with a guy like Cedric Howard, who is still a stretch to take him that high, but I still see more upside coming from him than Danny Wolf. Anyway, those are some of the players I would like to see the Bulls avoid going into this draft, but I would love to hear what you guys think, though. Who are some of the draft prospects you're wary of? You let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.